Hello, good morning. Today we're going to talk about comparisons, especially with would you rather questions. So I'm going to ask different would you rather questions, and you need to basically tell me which option you prefer of the options that I present. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? How is everyone? Yeah, I used the Canva AI function to generate images. It's kind of funny. They're a little bit alien. The the AI images that it generates are kind of a little bit weird, uncanny valley, like almost looks realistic, but has some kind of bizarreness to it. So, good morning. Good morning. How are you doing today? I am a bit tired. I feel like I don't know, yesterday and today I felt pretty tired, so I'm glad that my classes make your Saturday better. But here it's a nice day, so I'll probably try to do something outside at some point. Maybe a little biking, a little walking, some sort of activity. Hello. How are you doing today? Welcome. Did everyone have a good week? Did everyone study English this week? Same for me, with better. I'm trying to decode this message. All right, so yeah, I said this, but my concept for today is that we are going to respond to different which do you prefer questions. And I want you to give your reasons that you prefer one thing over the other. Okay, you study English every day at community college. Awesome. That's great. So, I have here some different images that we're going to use to practice. Same for me with the better sat. Oh, okay. I read the number 6 in your message and I got confused, but that makes a lot of sense. Because of the context, I should have figured that out probably, but I'm only halfway done through with my first coffee of the day, so that's part of it. I'm just wondering where you are now. Yeah, I live in Chile in South America. I'm from the United States, but I've lived in Chile for around 4 years. And hello, top of the morning. It's nighttime in Indonesia right now. Okay, good night. No, it's typical to say good night when someone's ending the night. So that's usually when we say it. You could say good evening when you're like greeting someone, but good night usually sounds like you're leaving a situation in English. So that's a little bit weird. How's the weather over there? It's pretty good. It's pretty sunny, but because we're getting into fall now, in the morning there's some cold breeze. And my apartment, the sun is on the other side of my apartment until maybe like 1 or 2 p.m. and then it comes in through this window. So in the morning it's kind of cold and then it gets kind of hot when the sun comes in through here because it's that effect of what is it called? Magnifying glass. Like when you have an ant and a magnifying glass. Hello. Hi, Fabio. Okay, I'm going to get us started with the first question of today. Excuse the kind of weird graphics. Like I said, I generated these I generated these graphics in Canva. I kind of wanted to play around with Canva AI, so this is what we have. Also, good morning from Argentina and Turkey. Hello. Hi, Carlos. You want to learn English, but I'm lazy. I totally get that. Unfortunately, learning a language will take some moments of a lot of mental power, like learning anything. So, yeah, sometimes it just requires finding something you're really interested in. So even if you feel lazy, it's motivating enough to practice anyway. I do like living in Chile. I really like where I live. I live next to the ocean and I feel like I can go for walks all the time. So I kind of like that. Okay, so to explain, a brisk walk is to walk at a brisk pace means that you're walking with a little pep in your step. You're walking a little bit quickly with some intention. So that is to have a brisk walk, to walk a little faster with some intention. So between the two, maybe you can also make a comparison. Which one is more energizing to you in the morning? Which one wakes you up more in the morning? Which one do you feel too lazy to do in the morning? Etc. So I don't know. I'm thinking in my case, I would prefer, in theory, honestly, I prefer a brisk walk, but in the colder months, I can't always force myself to get out and have a brisk walk when I'm cozy in a warm bed. So I find it maybe more difficult to do in the colder months, but I also like the effect more, maybe. I'd rather start my day with a glass of warm water with chia seeds in it. Do you let the chia seeds soak up the water and get like gelatinous, or do you just right away drink the water? I'm very interested in that recipe. I'd rather start. I don't know what you meant by this one. Also, hi, Media Ceresa. Coffee, always coffee. Maybe before the walk, I need a coffee. I'm too lazy for the brisk walk, I would say. I'm too lazy for the brisk walk. Brisk is like to say quick. So not a slow walk, but a quick, or you're not running, but you're walking kind of fast or quick. A hot beverage is more tempting. I used to drink my hot coffee. Remember, if you guys say, I used to drink my hot coffee, that means that you used to in the past. But if you want to say that right now you have this custom, or you're accustomed to doing something, I am used to having my hot coffee. So both are grammatically correct, but it depends if you're referring to the past or the present. I would rather keep sleeping. Which word is better to use, prefer or rather? Honestly, they are synonyms in this situation. So I would rather or I would prefer. Yeah, they're not always used together. Let me think. Like rather has other meanings. You could say it's rather cold outside. So you can't always switch them. But in this case of talking about preference, you could say I would rather or I would prefer. I'm from Jordan. It's difficult to walk here near the house, so I take a drive. Okay. You soak them overnight. Okay, that's interesting. So it's like for a little bit of fiber. Hot tea during the winter months. Are you still faking your coffee these days? Oh, like drinking the fake coffee? My 2 weeks was up and I switched back to regular coffee right away. I gave in to the craving. But I did give up coffee for 2 weeks and have fake coffee. But now I just switched back to regular coffee yesterday. So I prefer always coffee to a walk. I would say, okay, that's really good. Slightly more natural word order. I always prefer coffee to a walk. Yeah. That would be like the most natural word order. I always prefer coffee to a walk. I would rather a brisk walk. You could say, I'd rather a brisk walk, or I'd rather have a brisk walk. Fake coffee, I decided to take a break from drinking coffee, so I was drinking this beverage that was made from wheat called Echo as a replacement for coffee. So that's what they were referring to about fake coffee. It tastes kind of like coffee, but it's not coffee. A hot beverage, I prefer hot sweet tea. Hot chocolate should do too, Charmin. I prefer mate. Okay. Are you from Argentina? The correct way to answer is using would, or we can't avoid using it. No, okay, if you use the word, that's a good question. If you use the word rather, then you have to use the word would. So I would rather. It's not possible to say I rather. You need to say I would rather. But if you use the word prefer, I prefer, or I would prefer. So in the case of the word prefer, you do not need to use would. You could use would, or you could not use the word would to show your preference. But in the case of the word rather, it's necessary to use the word would. Yeah. So that's a good question. And most people when talking, so I recommend being aware that most people when talking say, I'd rather, I'd prefer. So we often reduce the would to a D. Okay, does anyone remember what is a brisk walk? I can also tell you guys. Oh, you're from Chile. Okay, yeah. Of course, also Chileans drink mate, but often when I have a student from Argentina, they drink it during the class. So there's like a fanaticism of mate. I'd rather have a hot cup of water, not an hot cup of water, because hot is pronounced like a vowel, like a consonant. A brisk walk is a quick walk, so walking fast and with intention, not so slowly. Beverage is any drink, is a beverage. Yes, exactly, brisk walk. No siempre va con would. Por ejemplo, la palabra rather, cuando lo usamos así, va con would. Pero la palabra prefer, no necesitamos siempre usar would. Puede ser I prefer o I would prefer. Pero con la palabra rather, sí. Cuando estás hablando de preferencia. Is it also correct to say I rather would? I don't know if you would say I rather would. Okay, you could use rather in two ways, really, that come to mind, or two common ways. One is I would rather, and in that case, talking about preference. So I would rather do this than that. The other way is kind of like quite. So it is rather cold outside. So in that case, you could say, I rather love going to the movies, which is a lot more like a book character and not so much something I would say in a real conversation. But in that case, when you put rather before, it's acting like the word quite and not like the word prefer. So you couldn't say, I rather would go for a brisk walk, but you could say, I rather love going for brisk walks, if you're using it like quite, but not like a preference. I'd rather have a cup of coffee in the garden. Yeah, if you are learning British English, they tend to say garden. In the United States, we usually say the front yard or the backyard. So if it's in front of your house, it's the front yard, and behind your house, the backyard. The way I think about it in the US is like, if you have any sort of grass or space in front of your house, it's the front yard. And then if you are growing vegetables or flowers specifically, that is your garden. So you can have a yard with no garden. But when you say garden in the US, I think more like you're not just grass, like you're growing plants, or yeah, like that you're growing something intentionally that's not grass in the garden. Yeah, in a lot of Latin American countries, they use patio. I know in Chile also they do. Yeah, you could say a caffeinated beverage. I would prefer a caffeinated beverage. Can I say rather north? Yeah, if someone's like, can you come to my house? And then you look it up on the map. If I didn't answer you, it's because I didn't see your question. If you look it up on the map and then you're like, oh, that's rather north of here, you could say that, yeah. But yeah, I know that people were sending me a lot of questions. What does it mean, beverage? Oh yeah, a beverage, I think I did answer this. A beverage is something that you can drink. So actually we call it, if you work in any sort of restaurant or supplier for a restaurant, we call that industry the food and beverage industry. In the United States, the food and beverage industry. Yes, exactly. But in the United States, we also use the word patio, but like Miriam said, it's when there's not as much grass, but it's more like ceramic or tiles. That's when we have a patio. Okay, I'm going to go to a different one. So, again, this is like my weird AI generated images, but I thought they were kind of funny. So, would you rather spend your money on experiences or things? So, thinking about things, it could be anything. Yeah, like this is a kind of interesting AI generated image. I can't even really process what's in what's in this bag. What is the difference between beverage and the word brew? Okay, so to brew something brew is a verb and also can be used as a noun. To brew something is when you, I don't know how to explain this. Like you brew a cup of tea, or you brew any beverage where you kind of mix some sort of flavoring into the water. So it could be like tea, but also you brew beer. So the places where people make beer are called breweries in English, because this process of making a beverage, like using a flavoring and soaking it in the liquid to make it have this flavor, is called to brew something. And then, so because of that, it's a verb, but if I tell you, let's get a couple of brews, that means a couple of beers. So it's more specifically something that is, yeah, maybe, if it's used as a noun, I really would just use it to refer to beer. But when used as a verb, it's like this action with any sort of beverage, creating a beverage using flavoring into a liquid. But also, yeah, like Nicolas said, you could use it in a metaphorical way, like war is brewing. If something is kind of becoming more tense, for instance, like the flavor is developing. Like if something's developing, you could say it's brewing, like it's coming to the surface. I would rather spend it on experiences. Remember that we spend money on things. Experiences, if that involves journeys, okay. I'd rather spend my money on experiences. Okay, everyone's saying experiences. Is it correct to say I would go for experiences? Yes, that's another way to say it. You can say I would rather spend money on experiences, or I would rather go for this, or even I would go for experiences. You could even just say I would go for, and I understand it's your preference. I would rather prefer spending my money on things like new English books. Nice. Okay, that's like spending your money on knowledge, maybe, which I guess is kind of like an experience. I would buy a house if I had. Remember, when we're talking about a hypothetical situation, we need to use the past. So if you say I have the money to buy a house, that means it's true. But if you don't, you could say if I had the money. We need to use the past tense here. Other ways to use rather in a sentence. Yeah, I would say the most typical are expressing a preference, and then also to use it like the word quite. So I would buy a house if I had the money, but houses are rather expensive these days. For example, you could say it like that. Also, hello, if you're joining, we're talking about what you would rather do in different situations. Reading an English book takes me like 3 months. I think also, maybe it depends on the level too. Maybe you're reading very difficult books, or books that are more like you need to look up more words or take a longer time to process what you're reading. Because often when we read in another language, we need to go down a few levels because we don't have so much practice reading in that language. So if it's taking you guys a long time to read in English, you could also try out a book that is a bit below your level in your native language so that you have more words that you know in this book. Okay, I'm going to choose a different one. Okay. Because that's happened to me too. Like a lot in Spanish, a lot of people recommend like really complex poetic books. But yeah, I sometimes prefer to read a little bit. Like I was reading this one, which is actually written by an Italian author but translated. And it's for adults, but her way of writing is a lot more accessible. It was like, okay, there's only like a few words, like a couple words on each page that I don't know, which is, so it's easier for me to understand the context. Yeah, the pictures are a little bit weird today. Like, what are these pink rocks? Okay. The picture. Surely by the sea. I like that. I don't really like heights. Okay. So you prefer like a lower, like closer to sea level. I'd rather spend my time by the sea. True. Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of good authors in Argentina and also in Uruguay. I took a class with an Uruguayan teacher and she always recommended authors from Uruguay. If it's hot by the sea, go for a weekend for sure. I would rather have both of them, or I would rather, in this case, yeah, I mean, maybe I would rather go to a place with both of them, or I would rather, yeah, you could say I would rather have both of them, or if it's a getaway, I would rather do both of them. A getaway. This is one of those examples where we can use a phrasal verb as a noun. So, for instance, I can say, I want to get away for the weekend. Like, I want to escape the city and get away for the weekend. But then I could call that trip a getaway. In the same way, if you want to have a meeting with friends, in English, we don't typically say a meeting when it's with friends. That's more for work. So we say more, I want to get together with friends, and that friend meeting is called a get-together. So this is a common thing that we do in English where the action is two separate words and then the thing itself, like the journey, is called a getaway. I'm from the Sahara. We have big mountains here. Okay, that's interesting. The biggest desert in the world. I would go for a weekend by the sea. Nice. That's a good phrase. Good morning. I like to spend more time in the mountains. It's quieter than the beach. Nice. Yeah, that's a good comparison. So if you guys have any comparison, you can use the same structure. It's quieter than the beach. Or the beach is sandier than the than the mountains. Or maybe a trip to the mountains is more exhausting. I tend to prefer going to the sea. To a trip to the mountains, but both are cool. Nice. Hello, Will. Oh, I'm welcome in Algeria. Thank you. Get together, you spell it this way. Yeah, I think most commonly we add a hyphen like this. Get together. So the weird thing is, often when we have a compound word like this, it starts with a hyphen. And then over time, with a lot of use, often the hyphen goes away. So this happened with the word coworker. In the past, the word coworker was written like this with a hyphen. Co-worker. But now, because we use this word so often, it is all together in one word. Another thing is that sometimes when we have a repeated consonant sound, we keep the hyphen because get together has TT, so it's a little bit better looking to keep the dash or keep the hyphen compared to get away is T and then A. So probably they'll, or we as a people will prefer to keep the hyphen with a word where it's T and then T. That's something I should do a video about. There's a lot of interesting peculiarities with when we add a hyphen and when we don't. I would rather have a weekend by the sea. I would prefer sea over mountains just to make myself relax. I would rather have a weekend by Cartagena's beach in Rosario Islands. I would rather choose the mountains because we have enough sand here in Jordan. What about get along? I think Will said, yeah, it's having a good relationship with someone. Yeah, so you could say we get along really well. I do not get along with my uncle, for example. How about trekking? What does it mean exactly? Trekking is another word for hiking, but I've heard it's kind of more like intense hiking usually if you're doing a bigger trip. Honestly, in the United States, it's not common to use the word trekking as much as the word hiking. We tend to use the word hiking for any type of walk in a mountain or walk in the woods. But this word trekking, people use a lot in Chile. So after I got here, people use this word a lot. But you can sometimes see it. Like if you go online and search for like trekking clothes or something like that, it'll show you hiking clothes. I think that the beach is a bit boring. I prefer the mountains always. I'd rather get away to the mountains. Okay, here, if you're using get away as a verb, in this case, you need to have it separate. I'd rather get space away to the mountains. So you can have a getaway, or I'd rather get space away to the mountains. I'd rather have a sea weekend than a mountain one. Yeah, that makes sense. I like that. I've been in Chile for a couple of months. Nice. Yeah, I think you mentioned that. Did you go to Santiago? Also, yeah, I don't have private one-on-one classes at the moment, but I do have my group classes, and they're not specifically about business, but I send the topic every week via email for what the topics will be. Like this past week, it was every class was related to the past tense, but we did different things. Often I do teach phrases and words that could be used in a business context, but it's not specifically a business course. But honestly, most people, yeah, I have a lot of students that work in the US, but the hardest thing for them isn't just their technical vocabulary that they kind of have anyway from work. It's more that they don't know how to, or not that they don't know how to, but they need more practice socializing and talking to coworkers and that sort of thing. So that's why I don't just do like business class. There's a city called Los Angeles. Yeah. It's Los Angeles here, and then in the US it's Los Angeles. I'd rather get away to the mountains. Yes. Okay, I'm gonna change the topic. Okay, this is another, like, what is your AI doing, Maggie? What do you prefer, Maggie, the sea or the mountains? That's really hard for me. I think that, honestly, I might prefer, I think it depends on the mountain. I really like forested places. So, places with a lot of green and kind of forest. So because of that, I might choose the mountains. I really like living next to the ocean, but if I had to choose which one is my favorite, I think, oh, can you guys hear me? Hello? Is there any sort of... Are you guys able to hear me here? Okay. I need the adrenaline, so I'd rather power through in the last minute. True. You're like, I think a lot of us work better under pressure. Okay, nice. I wasn't sure. Sometimes it's my connection. So I was thinking if you guys can't hear me, it could be my my connection also. Yeah, I have the link to my group classes in my bio, so they're on my website. I have a little calendar where you can sign up. Okay, what do you prefer? Tackling. And also here, this word tackle. Yes, to tackle is like to handle or deal with. In the literal way, to tackle is like to... Also, thank you guys for telling me about my my audio. To tackle in the literal way is like, for example, in American football, the different people like, I don't know, tackle each other for the ball. It's like when one guy kind of attacks the other guy. That's called a tackle. You could say, like, the man who robbed my phone was running away, and then the police officer tackled him to the ground. And so when we tackle a task, in that case, it's kind of like to deal with it or to manage it, to be like, gotcha, I was able to complete this task. I tackled the task. Yeah, if you are having a problem with your internet, I'm also going to post the live after, so you guys can see if you end up missing anything. I said to the ground. Yeah, you tackle someone to the ground. Tackle to the ground. Oh yeah, if you're playing rugby also, you tackle. It's called a tackle. Yes. And the rugby tackle is different from a football tackle. I remember in college, I made friends with a girl who played rugby, and she showed me a rugby tackle. Hello. Did you guys say hello because I disappeared? Okay. I'm always scared now. It's happened to me before where I had a live where I disappeared. You end up on the ground. I would rather have it for... I would rather save it instead of have it. I would rather save it for the last minute because I tend to procrastinate. My name is Maggie. Also, thank you guys. I sometimes get confused with the messages. I think, oh, did I disappear or something? Awesome. Okay. I'm gonna do a different topic. Here. Okay. What? Wait. This is another, like, really weird AI vibes. So, here. What do you prefer? Planning every detail or going with the flow? This should be related to travel. I think I accidentally downloaded the non-updated version of this image where I added the phrase when traveling, but it didn't work. So, thinking about when you travel, would you rather plan every detail or go with the flow? I'm like the water, so I go with the flow. True. I think that with your blue image, Will, you're like the water. I'd rather handle the hardest task first, so I'd be able to relax after that. Nice. Yeah, maybe Maximiliano, you're a fast thinker. I prefer going with the flow. Planning, always. Okay. I would prefer to have a plan, but I would like to go with the flow in some way. Okay, like a balance. I'd rather... Okay, I rather enjoy going with the flow. Nice. I'd like both. I would rather plan every detail. Okay. Going with the flow for learning. Do you mean like you want to learn along the way? Like in the process of going with the flow, you want to learn some things? Because we often say, I like to learn along the way, for instance. Or like for it to learn something. I think going with the flow would be a great choice. Spontaneous things are better than planned things and then things getting out of control. Okay. So you prefer not to be attached to a plan that doesn't work out. Sometimes going with the flow is more fun. True. I would prefer planning every detail, no stress. We could merge them together and get the best from them both. Okay. You guessed that I like both. Actually, that's true. I feel like I tried to plan enough that if I'm going to a new place, I know what kind of activities there are to do, but I prefer to wait until the same day that I do something to decide what activity I feel like that day. Because sometimes when you say, okay, day 1, I'm going to go hiking. Day 2, I'm going to go to the city. Day 3, I'm going to go to the beach. But then on day 1, you don't feel like going hiking. You feel like relaxing. I like to have the flexibility to change the order of things, but kind of to have a general idea of what there is to do in the place, if that makes sense. I think going with the flow is the best thing, but when the city that you will travel to has a lot of beautiful places, you need to make a plan. True. Like you don't want to miss a lot of things, maybe. I'd rather try to plan every detail, but it ends up going randomly. I get stressed if things change too much. Yeah. Yeah. Planning every detail to not forget or avoid forgetting the famous places. Yeah. I think also for me, it depends on who I'm traveling with. Like if the person I'm traveling with doesn't make any plans, I'll probably plan more. And if they are a big planner, I'll probably try to help, but I don't feel like I feel comfortable if someone wants things to be their way. But okay. Sure. I'd rather plan every detail, but also be flexible if there's any change. Nice. Going with the flow makes you feel free. I think so. I also think it depends on the type of trip. Like in Chile, I've done a bit of traveling in the go with the flow way and it worked out really well. But for example, if you want to go to Patagonia in Chile in the south and do the trek through Patagonia, you need to make reservations for the campsites and plan a lot, or else you won't be able to camp in, like, you need to book the campsites in the specific order you need, and often they run out of space. So for that kind of trip, it's not really possible to go with the flow. You have to book everything in advance and like be very intentional with the details. The barking dogs. Hello. Okay, you could say, I would prefer... Yeah. I would prefer to be on a diet. Yeah, if you're saying it all like one phrase, I would prefer to be on a diet. If you're saying it all together, connecting like this. But if you, like in this case, there's a colon and then the other idea starts. So you can say, what do you prefer? Colon, and then the activities starting with ing. But if you're making it all connect like in one sentence without this colon, the best thing to do would be to say, I would prefer to. However, you can probably hear some native speakers use the ing verb, but this would be the more grammatically correct way. Would be, I would prefer to. Hi Makima. I'm living in La Playa just because I go with the flow. Nice. Me too. Just vibing. Everything is just... The colon is this. Colon. Okay, actually the colon has two meanings. Colon is this punctuation. And like, for example, the semicolon is this one. Also, colon is the butthole. But in punctuation, it's the two dots. Okay, I'm going to change to the last one. Would you say people in Chile are generally more going with the flow than in the US? Definitely. Definitely. Actually, I think that... Oh yeah, it's part of the stomach. Okay, it's actually not the butthole. It's part of the stomach. I would definitely say that people are more go with the flow in Chile, in Latin America in general, but yeah, like if you compare me and my husband, he's like very much more go with the flow than me. And also, for example, like, okay, just to give an example of this, this week, on Monday, I wanted to get, buy more coffee beans in the morning. I think it was Monday. I don't remember which day. And I wanted to buy more coffee beans in the morning. And I saw that this, coffee place that I like to get my coffee from opened at 7:30 in the morning. So I leave my house to get the coffee beans before 8 o'clock, like 7:45. The person who works there did not show up or open the coffee place until close to 9 in the morning. And I just was thinking, like, in the United States, I think people would be very aggressive to this person if they didn't have... because we have a big culture of like business people getting their coffee first thing in the morning, and she was like so casual, like she didn't care. She was like do, and I don't know. I think that it's pretty for me that was like, I've already gotten used to the Chilean culture, but that was like another culture shock moment. Like, oh my God, imagine in the US if someone didn't open the coffee shop on time, people would fight them probably. En Chile, vamos con el flow porque en cualquier momento hay terremoto. That's true. Exactly. I think that people are like, you know what? If there's a natural disaster or an earthquake, it will just happen. Yeah. But I think it's like a mixed bag. It's sometimes more difficult to plan things, but at the same time, people are usually more empathetic if something comes up. Like, here it's common to take your time if you're having a evening out and you want to spend time with friends and then go do something else. You can show up late. But when I went back to the US, I was meeting with a friend and then going to meet other friends. And I felt a lot of pressure to arrive on time. And like, they were asking me, where are you? And so it's kind of like there's a positive and negative to both. One episode at a time, you absorb and analyze things through and through. Okay. Sometimes there's no choice with new shows. True. You just have to binge. Or you have to catch up. Like, all the memes are coming out online and you have to be up to date. I prefer to binge watching an entire season in one sitting. Ayer se sintió el movimiento acá en Argentina. Oh, okay. And I had a longing for caffeine, true. But then I waited the week to consume the caffeine, so... I would prefer a marathon all the weekend. I would prefer to watch one episode at a specific time. It depends on the show, but I never watched a show in one sitting. I would say sitting with an I. I'd prefer binge watching the entire season rather than watching the last season. If it's a premiere series, I prefer to watch one episode a week. It hooks you more when you watch it. I would watch 2 or 3 episodes and then do something else. Okay, so small doses. Binge watching in Portuguese is called maratonar. Yeah, I think in Spanish, At least in Chile, I've heard people say maratonear, algo así. I think people say something similar. Binge. Okay, so the word binge means to do a lot of something at the same time. So if you binge watch a television show, it means to... If you binge watch a television show, it means to watch a lot at one time. But you could also binge eat. So if you eat like 10 burgers and 5 bags of chips and like 400 cookies, that is to binge eat. So you could binge watch something, consume a lot of television at one time, or you could binge eat something also. Atracones of food. Is that like to binge eat something? Like to eat a lot at one time? Did you ever do binge watching? Yes, I have done binge watching. Actually, I'm watching an anime right now, called the Apothecary Diaries. Okay. Called the Apothecary Diaries, and I watched a lot of it, and now I caught up, so I'm up to date, like, with the series, and now I have to wait every episode. You started to watch it yesterday. Oh my god. I got hooked on it, and now I'm all up to date, so I have to wait. I'm forced to wait every week while they release the new episodes. Okay, so binge eat is atracón. We also binge watch, which is maratonear, como ver un maratón. Maratonear. Cravings? No. Okay, so craving is more like the desire to eat something. To have a craving is like to have a... Oh my goodness. Wait. Okay. Okay. I didn't... Anyways, so to have a craving is to... That was my other personality. To have a craving is like to have a strong desire to eat something. So like pregnant women also... yeah, I don't know what just happened. I accidentally used a filter. Like on Instagram, you can use filters. So like... I accidentally used a filter. I don't know which one it was. But yeah. Yeah, I'm honestly not sure because I did not click it on purpose. Okay, that's funny. Yeah, so if, for example, pregnant women often... I don't know, were any of you guys here that one time there was like a seal or a sea lion filter and I accidentally turned myself into an animal? I should do like weird, yeah, anyways. So, a pregnant woman, if she's like, oh my god, okay, for example... My mom, when she was pregnant with me, she told me that she went to Burger King every day, not every day, but like many days, because she had a strong craving for hamburgers. So very often when my mom was pregnant with me, she would eat Burger King hamburgers because she had a strong craving for this type of food. That's a craving. It's like the desire. But then the binge eating is like if you then eat a lot of it. So you can have a craving, but control yourself and not binge eat. Or you could, yeah. Yeah, it's more related to like the craving is the desire, and then the binge eating is the yes, exactly. So you could say when she was pregnant. Exactly. You could say when she was pregnant with me, she had a craving for hamburgers. And so a craving is antojo, but then to crave is also a verb, and so that's like tener antojo. So she had a hamburger craving when she was pregnant with me. All right. Well, nice job everyone today in the live class. That was really funny in the end with the filter. I'm glad that you were able to catch that. But I hope you have a good rest of your weekend, and yes, you could say I binge on food or movies. Yeah, you could say that too. I binge on food or I binge on movies. Yeah, of course. Have a good rest of your weekend, and I'll see you guys the next week. Take care, everyone. And I'm posting this on Instagram, so you can see it now. Bye, guys. Have a good Saturday. I'm craving cinnamon rolls. Ooh, me too. I would love a cinnamon roll. Bye, guys. Take care.